The moment respect is tested the moment someone disrespects you, something subtle happens inside your body before your mind even has time to react. Your chest tightens. Your jaw clenches. Your thoughts begin racing. This is the exact instant where most people lose their power without realizing it. They believe the threat is external, a rude comment, a dismissive tone, a sideways glance. But the real threat is internal. It is the unconscious urge to defend your identity. Strong minds understand that disrespect doesn't damage them directly. It only reveals where emotional attachment still lives. What most people miss is that disrespect is rarely about you. It is almost always about the emotional state of the person delivering it. People project frustration, insecurity, and unresolved tension outward, because they don't know how to hold it inward. Yet, when you receive that projection, your nervous system treats it like a personal attack. This is where emotional weakness shows itself. The impulse to explain, the urge to correct, the desire to prove. These reactions feel justified in the moment, but psychologically they communicate something dangerous, that your inner stability depends on external approval. Emotional tension builds because disrespect challenges how you see yourself. The mind begins replaying scenarios. You imagine comebacks. You rehearse arguments. You feel compelled to restore balance. But strong minds recognize this pattern instantly. They notice the internal disturbance before it becomes outward behavior. They understand that reacting emotionally hands control to the other person. The disrespecter becomes the director of your mood, your posture, your tone, your energy. In that moment, authority shifts away from you. Here is the realization that separates strong minds from reactive ones. Nothing said to you has power unless it touches something unresolved inside you. When someone insults you, and you feel shaken, it's not because their words were powerful. It's because your sense of worth was still externally anchored. Strong minds take responsibility for that. They don't blame the person. They observe themselves. They recognize the attachment. And instead of reacting, they pause. This pause is not passive. It is deliberate. It is the space where discipline replaces impulse. In that space, strong minds ask a silent question: why does this matter to me? They don't rush to answer. They simply notice. Awareness dissolves emotional charge. When you observe your reaction without feeding it, the intensity fades. The nervous system settles. Clarity returns. Psychologically, this is profound. You stop trying to win the moment and start mastering yourself. You realize that proving your worth is unnecessary when you already know it. You understand that defending your ego only strengthens the illusion that it was under threat. Strong minds choose containment over confrontation. They let the other person reveal themselves while they remain internally still. This is the mindset shift. Instead of seeing disrespect as something to fight, you see it as information. You learn who lacks emotional regulation. You learn who seeks reaction. You learn who is uncomfortable with silence. Most importantly, you learn where you still have work to do inside yourself. Disrespect becomes a mirror rather than a weapon. Over time, this changes how you move through the world. You stop explaining yourself to people who have already decided not to understand. You stop reacting to energy that isn't aligned with yours. You stop giving emotional access to those who haven't earned it. Your presence becomes quieter. Your responses become slower. Your boundaries become clearer without needing to be announced. People begin to feel this shift even if they can't articulate it. They notice that you don't flinch. That you don't rush to justify yourself. That you don't rise to provocation. This unsettles emotionally driven individuals because they rely on reactions to feel powerful. When they don't get one, they are forced to sit with their own instability. Strong minds don't seek revenge. They don't engage in emotional theater. They simply withdraw attention. And attention is the currency most people crave without admitting it. When you remove it, you reclaim your center. The identity takeaway is subtle but permanent. You become someone whose emotional state is self-governed. Your value no longer rises or falls based on how others treat you. You move differently. You listen more than you speak. You observe more than you respond. You understand that respect is not demanded, chased, or negotiated. It emerges naturally when your inner world is no longer available for manipulation. Eventually, disrespect stops feeling personal. It becomes background noise. You recognize it as unprocessed emotion passing through someone else. And instead of absorbing it, you let it move past you, remaining rooted in your own internal authority. The hidden rule of emotional power. There is a quiet rule operating beneath every social interaction. And most people never notice it until they've already given away their power. Whoever controls their emotional response controls the dynamic. This is not obvious in the moment because emotion feels justified. It feels earned. When someone disrespects you, interrupts you, dismisses you, or tries to belittle you, your mind immediately frames it as a challenge that must be answered. But strong minds understand something deeper. The moment you emotionally engage, you enter the other person's frame. You begin playing their game. What almost no one sees is that disrespect is often a test, not an attack. Some people provoke to measure boundaries. Some do it to elevate themselves. Some do it unconsciously because chaos feels familiar to them. But the unseen pattern is always the same. They are watching how much control they have over you. Your reaction becomes feedback. Your tone becomes data. Your body language becomes permission. Human behavior follows energy. When someone realizes they can pull emotion from you, they will continue to do it. Not necessarily because they are malicious, but because the nervous system is wired to repeat what works. If raising their voice makes you defensive, they raise it again. If sarcasm makes you explain yourself, they become more sarcastic. If dismissiveness makes you chase validation, they learn that they can move you by withdrawing respect. Strong minds notice this early. They don't wait until resentment builds. They don't escalate. They don't argue to restore dignity. They understand that dignity is not negotiated in moments of emotional tension. It is embodied long before those moments arrive. This is where psychological leverage appears, not as manipulation, but as self-command. Strong minds remove their emotional availability from unstable exchanges. They don't reward disrespect with attention. They don't meet aggression with reaction. They don't explain themselves to people who have already decided to misunderstand. Instead, they slow down. Their voice becomes quieter. Their movements become minimal. Their eyes stay steady. This alone changes the dynamic. Silence does something powerful to emotionally driven people. It forces them to confront themselves. Without your reaction, their behavior has nowhere to land. Their nervous system expects resistance, explanation, or engagement. When none arrives, discomfort rises. They become aware of their own instability. Some retreat, some soften, some become more erratic. But in every case, the balance of power shifts back toward you. The mindset shift here is subtle but profound. You stop trying to win moments and start protecting your internal state. You realize that reacting does not defend you. It exposes you. Emotional reactions broadcast where your attachments live. They reveal what can be used against you. Strong minds keep those doors closed. This does not mean becoming cold or detached from humanity. It means becoming selective with your energy. You learn that not every comment deserves a response. Not every tone requires correction. Not every misunderstanding needs clarification. Some situations resolve themselves when you simply refuse to emotionally participate. Over time, this creates a new social pattern around you. People become more careful with how they speak to you. Not because you demand respect, but because your presence signals boundaries without words. You don't give emotional reactions freely. You don't chase approval. You don't compete for dominance. You operate from quiet self-possession. This is what makes strong minds difficult to provoke. They understand that attention is currency. Emotional labor is currency. Engagement is currency. And they don't spend it impulsively. The identity takeaway forms slowly, but once it settles, it never leaves. You become someone who does not rise when baited. Someone who does not shrink when challenged. Someone who does not perform under pressure. Your nervous system becomes your ally instead of your enemy. You begin to feel a strange calm in moments that used to destabilize you. You recognize disrespect as information, not insult. You see emotional chaos as something happening outside of you, not inside you. Eventually, people realize that trying to move you emotionally is pointless. They either adjust their behavior or remove themselves. And either outcome serves you. You are no longer negotiating your worth through reaction. You are simply standing in it. Discipline creates emotional immunity. The hardest battle is never with other people. It is with the impulses inside you that demand immediate expression. Every time you feel disrespected, ignored, or undermined, something primitive wakes up in your nervous system. It wants to react. It wants to defend. It wants to restore balance by force, by words, by emotion. This is where most people lose control. They mistake impulse for strength. They believe that expressing how they feel is power. Strong minds understand the opposite. Power begins the moment you delay reaction. Internal conflict always appears first as tension. Your chest tightens, your jaw clenches, your thoughts race. Part of you wants to stay composed, while another part wants to explode or explain. This moment decides everything. Weak discipline follows emotion. Strong discipline observes it. What most people never realize is that discipline is not about suppressing feeling. It is about refusing to let feeling dictate behavior. Emotional control does not mean you feel nothing. It means you feel everything and still choose your response. This is why discipline changes everything. Without it, your emotions lead. With it, your awareness leads. Strong minds train themselves to pause. That pause becomes sacred. It creates space between stimulus and response. In that space, you regain sovereignty over yourself. You see the situation clearly instead of through the fog of ego. You notice tone, intention, and context. You recognize when someone is projecting their own insecurity. You sense when a remark is meant to provoke. You become aware of patterns instead of being consumed by moments. Emotional control begins here, in the ability to sit with discomfort without acting on it. Most people cannot tolerate this. Silence feels unbearable. Not reacting feels unnatural. They rush to fill the gap with words, explanations, defenses. Strong minds let the discomfort breathe. They allow awkwardness. They allow tension. They allow others to reveal themselves. Mental boundaries form through repetition. Every time you choose restraint over reaction, you strengthen an internal wall. That wall is not coldness, it is clarity. You stop allowing external behavior to invade your inner state. Insults no longer penetrate deeply. Dismissiveness no longer destabilizes you. You become less accessible to chaos. This boundary changes how you move through the world. You stop carrying every interaction home with you. You stop replaying conversations in your head. You stop crafting imaginary comebacks hours later. Your mind becomes quieter. Your energy becomes contained. You conserve yourself. Psychological transformation happens gradually. At first, discipline feels heavy. You must consciously hold your tongue. You must consciously slow your breath. You must consciously relax your shoulders. But over time, composure becomes automatic. Your nervous system rewires itself. Calm becomes your default. Reactivity fades. People begin to sense this shift. They feel it before they understand it. Your presence becomes steady. Your responses become minimal. Your silence becomes meaningful. You no longer offer emotional feedback to every stimulus. Some will find this unsettling. Others will respect it instinctively. Either way, you are no longer easily influenced. This is where emotional independence is born. You stop needing external validation to feel stable. You stop requiring acknowledgement to feel whole. You stop needing to prove yourself in conversations that don't matter. You realize that dignity is internal. It does not depend on how others treat you. Discipline also teaches you something uncomfortable. Not every battle deserves your energy. Some situations resolve themselves when ignored. Some people expose their own immaturity without your involvement. Some conflicts evaporate when you refuse to feed them. Strong minds understand that walking away emotionally is often more powerful than standing your ground loudly. This does not make you passive. It makes you precise. You learn when to speak and when to remain silent. You learn when to engage and when to withdraw. You learn that your peace is worth more than winning arguments. You learn that composure is a form of dominance that does not announce itself. The identity shift is quiet but permanent. You stop seeing yourself as someone who must react to survive. You begin to see yourself as someone who chooses when to engage. You become emotionally selective. You become mentally disciplined. You become harder to manipulate, harder to provoke, harder to destabilize. You realize that strong minds are not built through confrontation. They are built through restraint. They are forged in moments when no one is watching, when your ego begs for expression, and you choose silence instead. Over time, this discipline becomes part of who you are. You move differently. You speak less. You observe more. You feel deeply but act deliberately. Emotional storms pass around you instead of through you. You become someone who does not need to prove strength, because your calm already does, the untouchable state. There comes a point in your inner development where disrespect no longer registers the way it used to. Not because you've become numb, and not because you've hardened your heart, but because your emotional center has shifted inward. You no longer wait for the outside world to confirm your worth. You no longer need reactions to feel real. You move differently now. Quieter, slower, more deliberate. This is the future version of you that emerges when emotional discipline becomes part of your identity. At first, this state feels unfamiliar. You notice how calm you remain in situations that once would have shaken you. You observe people trying to provoke you, test you, or pull you into their emotional storms, and instead of being swept away, you remain present. You breathe, you watch, you let the moment pass. This is what happens when you detach from emotional dependency. You stop absorbing other people's chaos. You stop carrying their tension. You stop replaying their words in your mind long after the interaction ends. What most people never experience is this internal quiet. They remain entangled in reactions, constantly responding to triggers, constantly negotiating their sense of self with the world around them. But once you detach, something subtle changes. You become selective with your attention. You invest energy only where it matters. You realize that most conflicts are optional. Most disrespect is rooted in someone else's unresolved emotions. Most opinions do not deserve residency in your mind. Inner authority grows from this awareness. You stop seeking approval. You stop needing acknowledgement. You stop chasing understanding from people who aren't capable of offering it. Your confidence becomes self-generated. You don't announce boundaries. You embody them. You don't demand respect. Your presence quietly commands it. There is a long-term power that builds here, and it does not arrive loudly. It accumulates through small choices made consistently. Every time you choose restraint over reaction. Every time you choose silence over explanation. Every time you choose clarity over chaos. These moments compound. Your nervous system becomes steadier. Your thinking becomes sharper. Your emotional resilience deepens. Over time, people respond differently to you. Some become more cautious. Some become more respectful. Some drift away entirely. You no longer attract chaos the way you once did. You no longer entertain emotional games. You no longer feel compelled to participate in drama. Your energy shifts, and with it, your environment. Identity consolidation happens quietly. You stop identifying as someone who reacts. You begin to see yourself as someone who observes. You stop defining yourself by how others treat you. You define yourself by how you remain centered. You stop measuring strength by volume and start measuring it by control. You become someone who does not rush to speak, does not rush to defend, does not rush to correct. You let silence do its work. This version of you is emotionally untouchable. Not because nothing affects you, but because nothing owns you. You still feel. You still care. But you are no longer driven by impulse. You no longer give your power away in moments of irritation. You no longer let disrespect dictate your behavior. You move from a place of internal alignment rather than external pressure. You also begin to understand that freedom is not found in changing others. It is found in mastering yourself. You realize that the strongest position in any interaction is emotional independence. When nothing outside of you can destabilize your inner state, you gain a kind of quiet authority that cannot be challenged. You become steady while others fluctuate. You remain clear while others become reactive. You hold your ground without needing to announce it. And then one day, almost without noticing, you realize that the storms that once pulled you apart now pass around you, that situations which used to drain you now barely touch you, and that the respect you once chased now arrives naturally because your calm has become your signature.